got into the mod revival scene in London as a result of Quadrophenia film with some of my school friends and some of the older lads who had Minis and Lambretta scooters at the time. One thing I discovered was my mother Janet's record collection, where she had been a mod in the 1960s, living in the heart of swinging London. So not having any money, I was more of a record borrower than a collector to start with, and it was almost second nature when I played her UK copies of Jimmy Radcliffe, Long After Tonight Is All Over, and the Invitations, What's Wrong With Me Baby. So around the early 1980s, instead of blagging into the regular pub disco at the weekend playing Madonna, I was going to London mod scooterist clubs that would play Tamla Motown and more obscure Northern Soul tracks. Again, many that my mother had. Clubs such as the Castle and Tooting, in the Beetroot in Soho, and the Bush Hotel in Shepherd's Bush. They would play big party soul classics, such as the Marquettes Last Night and the Huey Piano Smith, Don't You Just Know It. I was still only 14 or 15 when I cottoned on that if I found the right sort of soul 7-inch records from, say, the Record and Tape Exchange in Camden for 10 pence each, I could resell them for 50 pence or £1 to a couple of record shops in Carnaby Street, Terry Stokes or Centre City Records. At this point, I was just turning 16 and I was given the green light to go to late night clubs, those that required membership at the time. So I attended one of my first proper Northern Soul all-nighters at the 60s 100 Club in Oxford Street in around 1982. It was amazing, not just because of the music and all these great DJs, but because the place was crammed with record dealers and collectors selling records. The whole stage and table had vinyl everywhere. I just couldn't believe it. The other big difference was the amount of US 7-inches. Whilst all my mother's records were UK releases with small holes, here were the same records with big holes on the original US recording. And the other thing I noticed was the prices. Even then, some records were worth over £100, which was easily a week's wage. I vowed from this point to collect original US releases and search these out. Next stop was Beano's record shop in Croydon, not far from where I lived at the time. The old hippie fella who was fed up of putting down all the expensive records in the boxes behind the counter, but now I had a new focus on the US cutouts that they slung in the 10 pence racks. Wow. And suddenly I was in the world of collecting and buying rare and obscure soul records, because two things you need as a collector of Northern Soul vinyl are luck and a good ear. The luck you make yourself by research, studying, making contacts and being at the right shop or all-nighter at the right time. I like to think I inherited the good ear from my mum and grandfather Frank, both modernists in their own way and dealing with difficult circumstances. Roll on turning 19 and I was going to the US for the first time on my own to buy records. In New York, I picked up a copy of Sam Fletcher on my first day there. Wow. Other early US adventures continue with good friends, such as a time with Kevin Moore when we were in Rookie Ricardo's in San Francisco, scrambling to find that Herb Ward Strange change for $15. You'll have to ask Kevin who got there first. I felt very privileged to see him meet some of these soul heroes that were on these wonderful recordings. And I'd like to thank so many friends and fellow collectors and DJs for inspiring me along the way. Now as I turn 50 and a number of US buying trips later with family and on business, every bit of spare time I would try and find that local vinyl store in Philly, Washington or Detroit. But I don't think it did me any favours on the business side. How could I explain this vinyl addiction and the front room full of vinyl records? Despite having thousands, I still have that curiosity of the 13-year-old in Croydon. Vinyl collecting still brings out great highs and lows, just like life, coupled with the unknown and luck of what the next record you pull out of that magic box will be.